Hey everyone, I'm Monica Obniski, the High's new Curator of Decorative Arts and Design, and I'm taking over the museum's Instagram story today for Ask Me Anything Curator Edition. And I just want to thank you in advance for all of your questions. Okay, first question's a great one. What made you want to pursue decorative arts and design? So I think for me, it was the realization that objects have the power to tell social, political, and cultural histories, and that even the humblest object can act to interrogate or question important issues of our day. Okay, so the question is, how did you get into curation? I cannot stress this enough. Internships. So when I was in college, I did an internship at the Art Institute of Chicago in the museum education department. And while I loved being in the museum, I knew that education was not really going to be my path. And then I was fortunate to do an internship in the American art department, and that really set a path forward and really laid the foundation for the next steps, which included going to graduate school and doing more internships. So bottom line is internships. So this is a really challenging question because it's like being asked, which is your favorite child? So I will diplomatically answer and say that I'm excited to get to know the historic collections, particularly the Virginia Carol Crawford collection of late 19th century American work. But then also I'm really excited to dig into the contemporary design collection. And I'm really about having conversations across time and place. And so you may see some intermingling between historic and contemporary. Okay, so the question is whether I make art, and the answer is absolutely not. I am the biggest cheerleader for artists and designers, but I do not make anything. I'll tell a quick story. In the lead up to a graphic design exhibition that I was doing in Milwaukee, I decided to take a letterpress printing class in order to understand print technologies. And I quickly learned where my talents do not lie. So this is hard because not every designer that I follow necessarily has a major presence on Instagram, because it's hard to maintain an active following there and you have to devote a lot of time. But some of the designers that do manage to do so are people like Helly Young Hideous, and I really enjoy following her feed because it lets people know about all of the exhibition projects and other kind of research that the studio is undertaking. I'm also really a big fan of Chris Shank's work, and he's a designer in Detroit, and what's cool about his feed is that, well, pre-corona, you could see what the studio was up to, and so there were great studio shots. And for a third designer, I will just say, since I'm wearing a sweater designed by him, Henrik Vipskov, who's a Danish artist and designer, has a really cool feed too. So this one too is really tough, and I'm going to cheat a little bit and say Federal Plaza. So this is in downtown Chicago, and it's the plaza in which Alexander Calder's Flamingo from the early 1970s is sited, and it is against the backdrop of Mies van der Rohe's federal buildings. These are these huge international style, this kind of American modernism that dominated the landscape in the 1950s and 60s. And as part one of those buildings is the chicest U.S. Postal Service building that you have ever seen. And one of the reasons why I love this plaza is because in addition to this great sculpture and some of Mies's work, the kind of grid of modernism, as you kind of look around the plaza, you can also see buildings from the late 19th and early 20th centuries. So it's really a kind of nice microcosm of architecture, of historic architecture in Chicago. So there's a question about what my favorite exhibition that I've curated thus far is. And I'm going to say that it's a show that was supposed to open next month, but due to coronavirus, unfortunately, it is being postponed. It's a show that I've collaborated with a colleague at the Los Angeles County Museum of Art on, and it's a show called Scandinavian Design and the United States, and it is about the design exchanges that occurred between the Nordic countries and the United States from the late 19th century through the 1970s. And it will open in the United States, we think in 2022 at this point. So stay tuned for more on that. Okay, another great question. If you could meet any artist, living or deceased, who would it be? And hands down, it would be Alexander Gerard, whom I affectionately call my dissertation boyfriend because I wrote my dissertation about him. And I would just have 1,000,001 questions for him about his design practice, but also about his and his wife's voracious collecting of folk art. Okay, and now a question about what did I study in college? So like many curators, I studied art history in college, and then I went on and did a master's degree in decorative arts and design history, and my PhD is in art history as well, with a specialization in architecture and design history. So there's a question about whether I travel often, and if so, do I have a favorite travel destination? Well, pre-corona, I did travel quite often, and for the last almost 5 years, I've been going to the Nordic countries twice a year because I've been working on this major traveling design exhibition. So 2 of my favorite travel destinations are, in fact, capitals of Scandinavia, and they are Stockholm and Copenhagen. I just love being there, the spirit of the cities, the architecture, the design scene, the historic fabric of both of those city centers. They're just immensely interesting places. Okay, so that's it. Thanks so much to all of you for submitting such wonderful questions to the Q&A. I will see you guys soon. Take care.